The UFC's been on a little bit of a roll here. We had UFC 316 last weekend. We have UFC Atlanta coming up. In a little over a week, we have UFC Baku, and then followed by UFC 317. So in this video, I'm going to be going through my full card predictions for the UFC Baku fight night. Overall, really solid card, a nice main event, some fun matchups, all throughout the card. And so going to be breaking down every single matchup, giving you guys my winner pick and how I think they get it done. Timestamps are going to be in the description if you guys want to jump around. Let me know your picks. Hit the like button, subscribe if you guys enjoy. But let's just dive right into it here. And we're going to be starting off with Irina Alekseeva taking on Klaudia Sygula. Not going to be a super high-level fight. Alekseeva is 1-1 in the UFC. She had a knee bar win against Stephanie Egger in her debut, and then she had a unanimous decision loss to Melissa Mullins, but did have some early success. Dropped her in that fight, but ended up dropping 2 of the 3 rounds. This is a pretty big layoff for her. The last time we saw her fight was in October of 2023. On the other side here with Sygula, she is 0-1 in the UFC. She actually also fought Melissa Mullins, was finished in that fight. We also have Melissa Mullins on this card, so kind of weird how that played out. But she had a 6-1 pre-UFC record. She should probably want this fight on the feet. She has kind of shown to have some grappling deficiencies. We saw that in the Mullins fight. Even pre-UFC, she had some fights where she was controlled a little bit, even if she ended up getting the win. So I'm going to go with Alekseeva here. I'm going to pick her by decision. I do think she gets it done. Could be live to finish in any way, but I think this goes the distance, and she picks up a unanimous decision win. This next matchup, we have Seokhyeon Ko taking on Oban Elliot. For Ko, this is his UFC debut. These guys, I believe, were supposed to fight different opponents within the last few weeks. They end up getting rebooked together on this card. Ko has an 11-2 pro record, 6 knockouts, 5 decision wins. He had a pretty rough pre-UFC strength of schedule. He only had 2 knockouts against guys with winning records, and those records were 3-2 and then 28, 27, and 6. So he really wasn't like putting away the legit guys he was facing outside of the UFC, and then he was knocked out in his 2 losses. He did kind of mix in his grappling on the Contender Series, so can kind of mix it up a little bit. On the feet, he's primarily going to be headhunting. On the other side with Oban Elliot, really solid start to his UFC career, 3-0 record, pretty grappling heavy style. In his 2 decision wins, he's racked up 5 and 8 minutes of control time. He is coming off a pretty solid KO win on the feet against Basel Hafez, but probably not the path to victory, especially in this matchup. On the feet, he can be a little bit chinny. He's been knocked out in both of his losses, and then he was also dropped by Val Woodburn in his first UFC fight, or maybe his second one. So I think he's going to want to push this grappling game plan. Don't want to stand with a striker like Ko. It's just not the most, optimal game plan here. I do just trust Elliot's skill set, his grappling. He's beaten a better strength of schedule. So I think Oban Elliot gets this done. Could be live for a finish, but I am going to pick him by decision in this matchup. Then moving all the way up to heavyweight, we have Mohammed Usman taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. And this is kind of just a lower level heavyweight fight. I think Hamdy had some hope. The last performance was just not great. For Mohammed Usman, obviously related, the brother of Kamaru Usman, he just doesn't really stand out anywhere as a fighter. When you look at his frame, I mean, the dude's built like a tank. You would think he would just be like this super powerful, super explosive athlete, and it just doesn't show up really at all in his MMA game, striking or grappling. He's a 17% takedown accuracy, averaging under 1 takedown per 15 minutes. He's landed 1 singular knockdown in his 5 UFC fights, and I think if you include The Ultimate Fighter, I don't think he had a finish there either. So he just doesn't have a ton of finishing upside. He also absorbs 1 more punch per minute than he lands, and he's coming off of back-to-back losses to Mick Parkin and Thomas Peterson, who are not exactly elite heavyweights in the weight class. On the other side here with Hamdy, he also did not look great in his most recent fight. Won a pretty controversial split decision against Jamal Pogues. I thought Jamal Pogues should have gotten his hand raised, thought he kind of got screwed in that matchup, but Hamdy ended up picking up the win. I think what's interesting is that he actually has kind of a fun skill set in theory. He was an Olympic wrestler. I do think he has a little bit more power than Mohammed Usman, but it seems like his cardio kind of holds him back from really using what he's best at. If he could just go out there and wrestle for 15 minutes, I think he would. I just don't think he has the cardio to do so. I'm still going to lean towards Hamdy here. I kind of think he's better all around. I could see a situation where he comes out hot in round 1, looks good, maybe lands some big shots, but then kind of fades, and Usman just kind of grinds to a round 2 and round 3 win, but I'm still going to lean towards Hamdy here, and I'm going to pick him to win a decision. In the next matchup, we have Darya Zheleznyakova, I think I got that name right, taking on Melissa Mullins. Darya has a 1-1 UFC record, pretty boxing heavy style. She's only shot 1 takedown in her 2 UFC fights. She hasn't landed a single leg kick in either of them, so pretty much going to be getting it done with the hands, not super interested in attacking the legs, or mixing it up with the grappling. She has struggled to stop takedowns so far in the UFC. She was taken down 3 times against Rondon, even though she won that fight. And then she was also taken down twice by Eileen Perez, who ended up submitting her in the first round. For Melissa Mullins, I like that she at least comes in with a very solid game plan. Like, what she is going to try to push in her fights. She is going to hunt for the takedowns. She's going to look for that clinch or just overall control time. Like, that's going to be her game plan. She wants to kind of make things dirty and make it like a grinded out fight. She has been dropped in 2 of her 3 UFC fights, so there could be some openings here for Darya to land something, potentially find a finish, or to have some big moments. But she has been able to pretty consistently get that control time. I think for someone who has struggled with the takedowns, the wrestling like Darya, I have to side with Melissa Mullins here. And I'm going to go with another decision. I will say, I think this is a solid card. The first 3-4 matchups might not be the most entertaining. I think the Elliot fight could be fun, but the other 3 to start off the card could be a little bit underwhelming. And maybe this next one isn't exactly a barn burner, but I do think we're kind of building here. We have Ismail Naurdiev taking on Jun-Young Park, also known as the Iron Turtle. For Naurdiev here, this is his second UFC stint, went 2-2 in the first one. In his second stint here, he won his, second debut in a decision win against Bruno Silva. He has 24 career wins. 18 of those are by finish, but he does have a pretty soft, pretty padded record pre-UFC. When he was 11-1, 12-1, 13-1, he was consistently fighting dudes with losing records, and not even losing records 10-11. He's 11-1, 12-1, fighting dudes that are 1-2, 2-3. So pretty padded in terms of the finishes. All 5 of his UFC fights have gone to decision. I will say he has been durable, right? So he hasn't had that finishing upside in the UFC, hasn't landed a knockdown, but he also hasn't been dropped in any of his UFC fights. In his 2 UFC losses, he was control grappled pretty heavily, so that is a concern in this matchup. Does have solid kicks, can beat up the legs, but also is effective with those up high. I think Naurdiev is going to want to strike in this matchup. I think that, is kind of clear here. And then for Iron Turtle, 8-3 UFC record, very, very solid. A really impressive control grappler. He's top 10 amongst active middleweights in control time percentage, top position percentage. He applies pressure, has pretty solid cardio for the weight class. Not a super explosive athlete, not a super sharp, clean striker, but he's just kind of going to always be in your face. He can weather an early storm, and eventually he wears on you, and people tend to just kind of wilt under his pressure. I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen in this matchup. So I think round 1 might be a little rough for Park. Naurdiev, might have some juice early on, but I think Park is going to kind of, build as this fight goes on. I think he's going to win the later rounds. So I'm going to go with the Iron Turtle by decision. In this next matchup, we have Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Azat Maksum. This was originally supposed to be Ulanbekov against Kyoji Horiguchi. Unfortunately, Horiguchi had to pull out. That would have been a super fun matchup here. In terms of where these guys are at in their careers, it's kind of a weird replacement. Tagir's ranked number 12. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Maksum is 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a loss. Maksum did have a lot of hype coming into the UFC. He had a 14-0 record before his debut. He won his debut, very, very close split decision against Tyson Nam, and then he lost a unanimous decision to Charles Johnson. I will say Charles Johnson has some wins that are aging pretty well. Obviously, the one against Joshua Van. Who knows what Maksum does, but still, could be a fun prospect in this weight class. Maksum is a very well-rounded fighter, 4 knockout wins, 5 submission wins. He's landed 2 takedowns in both UFC fights. He's a very efficient striker, doesn't overthrow, a lot of straight shots, jabs, straights. But even though he has kind of fought pretty efficiently, don't think he has the best cardio. He's looked a lot less dangerous after round 1 in both of his fights. On the other side here with Tagir, I think he's probably a top 3 grappler in this flyweight division. I think you're looking at guys like Pantoja's probably number 1, just, has consistently been able to get his grappling going against some of the best dudes in the weight class. And then you're looking at Tetsuro Taira, Amir Albazi, guys like that. And I think Tagir's kind of in that general range. He has a 5-1 UFC record. He's landed 17 total takedowns in his 6 UFC fights with solid accuracy, 47% takedown accuracy. He's a very long frame for the weight class. I want to say he's listed at like 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. The reach might be accurate, but there's no way that dude is 5'7". I think he's probably closer to like 5'9", 5'10". Like when you compare him to some of the other dudes in his team, like next to Islam, next to Khabib, he's not looking like he's 3-4 inches shorter than those dudes. And then in his career, I think he has no knockout wins, but 9 wins by submission and then 7 by decision. I think this could be somewhat competitive. Tagir doesn't really have a style where he's just like going to go in and completely pull away, especially in flyweight. Like it's really tough to take someone down and consistently hold them there. So I think Azat Maksum could have some moments. I do think he's probably the better guy on the feet. I just think Tagir is going to have a real grappling advantage here, and I think he's probably going to win a decently clear decision. It's just tough to deal with the grappling of Tagir, and I don't know if Maksum's up for it at this point in his career. So we have Tagir by decision. We've had a lot of decisions so far. It might continue here. Hopefully that's not how it actually plays out, but that's just kind of what I'm looking at this point. The next matchup, we have Mohammed Naimov taking on Bogdan Grad. I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. These guys have very similar measurables in terms of their height, their reach. Both guys have very solid cardio. Both are also pretty well-rounded, willing to mix it up in there. For Naimov, he does have more UFC experience. He has a 4-1 record in the UFC. He KO'd Jamie Mullarkey in his debut. Since then, hasn't shown a ton of finishing upside, but still finding ways to get it done. He hasn't really been able to pull away from his opponents. Like he's never landed more than 1 strike more than his opponent, even in his wins. Like I think he had a win where I think it was Eric Silva, blew out his knee or something, like running around the cage. He landed 1 strike. Naimov did, and Silva landed nothing. And then he had another fight where he, I think, landed like 33 strikes. The other dude landed 32. He's never really been able to just like cruise past dudes in terms of the output, but he's scrappy. And like I said, he just continues to find ways to win these matchups. For Grad here, I do think he's the way more explosive athlete. He's a finisher, 15 wins, 9 are by knockout, 3 are by submission. I think he's the more dangerous guy on the feet. He's powerful. Like I said, super explosive, can close range, had a nasty flying knee KO before the UFC where like the dude was like pretty much like out sitting in a chair, and then he followed up with a huge shot. But he's also not a bad grappler, like 3 takedowns and a ground and pound finish in his debut. In his Contender Series win, he landed 3 takedowns. Also has a pretty solid guillotine, 2 wins by that in his pro career. I think that could be interesting if Naimov wants to come in and, have a wrestling heavy game plan. So I think that Grad's the underdog in this matchup. I'm going to pick him here. I just think this is going to be a super competitive back and forth fight. I don't see one dude just like completely pulling away with it. And I think Grad has the upside to have the bigger moments where this could be a super competitive fight, but Grad could be the one who lands that huge shot or, locks in a very tight, close submission. And I think that could kind of be the swing factor in this matchup. So I'm going to go with Bogdan Grad by decision. I know I'm keeping the decisions rolling here. I do think he could be live for a finish, but Naimov's tough. He's durable. I think he's a pretty smart fighter. I think Grad ends up winning a decision here. Then next up, I think we're going to be getting to our first finish. Yeah, we have Nazim Sadykhov taking on Nikolas Motta. Sadykhov's honestly just a super fun dude to watch. He has a 3-0-1 record in the UFC. He actually lost his MMA debut and then has been unbeaten in his last 11 fights. He's a finisher, only gone to decision once, or I guess twice. One for a win, and then the other one was a draw. He has 7 knockout wins, 2 submission wins, southpaw striker, really powerful left hand, some really dangerous kicks. His last fight was a doctor stoppage due to a cut, but it was off of a super nice question mark kick, but also has some solid grappling upside, 62% takedown accuracy. On the other side with Motta, he is very much kill or be killed. 10 of his 15 wins are by knockout. He's been finished in all 5 of his losses, 4 of those by KO, 1 by sub. He has a 3-2 record in the UFC, 2 knockout wins, 1 decision, but in that decision win, he actually landed 2 knockdowns. So obviously very dangerous. If he is having success, he is landing these big shots, he is hurting his opponent, whether he's getting them out of there or not. He is pretty boxing heavy, loves like his 2-3 combination, his 3-2, really nice left hook, and he doesn't really want to grapple, like 0 takedowns in the UFC, 82% takedown defense. So has been pretty solid at stopping the takedowns, but he's going to want to go out there, strike, land his big shots. I just think Sadykhov is way more well-rounded in this matchup. He is a little bit hittable on the feet, so like if Motta caught him, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think in a pure stand-up fight, I would still prefer Sadykhov. And then I think he does have just way more upside to be able to grapple, mix things up. If he is uncomfortable on the feet, I think he could shoot for some takedowns. And I think Sadykhov finds a finish here. I think he could clip him on the feet, get it to the ground, land some ground and pound. I'm going to go with Sadykhov round 2 KO. Then going up to heavyweight, we have Curtis Blaydes taking on Rizvan Kuniev. I feel like this fight's been booked a bunch of times. I know it got canceled, I think, on fight day a couple of months ago. This is what I said the last time I, previewed this fight. I think it's weird matchmaking. Like in Curtis Blaydes' last fight, he was fighting for the interim title against Tom Aspinall. In Kuniev's last fight, he was on the Contender Series, and it's not even like he was like this can't-miss stud prospect on the Contender Series. Like he literally popped for steroids in his previous fight before the Contender Series in the PFL. So like he popped for steroids, did a suspension, then hopped on the Contender Series, got a win, and all of a sudden he's getting like launched into a top 5 opportunity. Just very weird. Curtis Blaydes is legit. 13-5 record in the UFC. Has wins over Jailton Almeida, Alexander Volkov, Overeem, Hunt, JDS. He's powerful and a great wrestler in the heavyweight division. His kryptonite has really just been like these big, explosive power punchers. 2 losses to Francis Ngannou, a loss to Tom Aspinall, a loss to Sergey Pavlovich, and then a loss to Derek Lewis. Like these guys have some very clear things in common where they're going to be explosive. They're going to throw these huge shots. And if they land, you're going to go out. And that has been the case here for Curtis Blaydes. And Kuniev is just not that dude. Like he is not an explosive one-punch KO guy. He's more of a grinder, wants to kind of wear dudes down with his wrestling. I just think this is too much of a step up for Kuniev. I think he's going to come in and kind of want to fight a fight that Curtis Blaydes is very fine with, like that grinded out wrestling heavy style. And I think Blaydes is just going to win that matchup. And I think Blaydes is also the more dangerous guy on the feet. So I'm going to pick Curtis Blaydes here. I think he finds a finish. I think Kuniev probably isn't going to have a ton of success trying to like clinch and take Blaydes down. He might overthrow on the feet. I think he's going to start to wear out a little bit. I think Blaydes can take him down or just land a big shot. And I think he finishes him by knockout in round 2. Then we have a super fun fight, potentially the fight I'm most excited about here. We have Muktabek Orobai taking on Tofik Musayev. This is amazing matchmaking. Like, shout out to the UFC. This is a fantastic fight. If you guys are not familiar, Tofik Musayev is legit. He has a 22-5 pro record. This is his UFC debut, but he has 20 finishes in those 22 wins, 18 wins by KO, 2 by submission. He's fought in Ryzen and Bellator as like his 2 biggest promotions. 7-1 record in Ryzen, 1-1 in Bellator, but like lost to a very legit dude in that one loss. He's a super powerful, explosive striker. He's always aggressively hunting the finish. He's only gone to decision 3 times in his pro career. So this is like a legit debut. This is not someone like coming in off the regional scene, like an easy matchup for Orobai. This is a very, very tough fight here. For Orobai, he's a super fun prospect, but I kind of don't like from his perspective, as a fan, it's amazing, like these matchups he's been put in. If I was like managing him, I don't like the way they've laid out his strength of schedule here. He has faced some really, really tough competition. Like these were his last 3 matchups. He had Elvis Brenner, who was like known as like the prospect killer heading into that fight. Mateusz Rambeski, who's just a tank, hit super hard, a super tough out. And then now he's fighting a dude that was like championship caliber outside the UFC in Tofik Musayev. So he's really getting thrown to the wolves here. And for the most part, like he's come out doing pretty well. He beat Brenner, super close fight against Rambeski. I think he lost, but like was very competitive in there. I think the concern is just like he's going to take so much damage before he's actually breaking into the top 15 that I don't know if the durability is going to hold up long term. But when we're looking at his skill set, he is super well-rounded, very powerful, straight shots on the feet, very good wrestling, averaging 5.4 takedowns per 15 minutes in the UFC. Also has solid submission skills, 5 submission wins, and then his durability has just been insane. Like he took some massive shots against Mateusz Rambeski, and he was still staying in there, still looking to win the fight. So his durability has certainly held up so far, but he also does get hit, which is kind of concerning in this matchup. And that's really what kind of scares me here. I think Orobai should come in. He should want to mix things up. He should want to wrestle early on and kind of zap some of that power. But man, Musayev is so explosive. He hits so hard. He really throws like these big winging punches. And the defensive Orolbai, like I am very worried about it. So I think a lot of people are going to pick Orolbai here. He's looked good so far in the UFC. I'm going to go with the underdog here in Musayev, and I think he finds the finish. I think maybe he comes out a little bit patient in round one, maybe clips him a few times, weakens up that chin, and then I think Musayev is going to find the round 2 KO. Either way, though, whoever wins, I think this is going to be a super entertaining fight. Cannot wait for it. And then we've arrived at the co-main event, and I think I just said that last fight might have been my favorite. I might have been forgetting that this fight was also on the card. Rafael Fiziev taking on Ignacio Bahamondes. This is such a fun matchup. Two very, very dangerous strikers, but kind of fairly different strikers, especially in terms of their frame, and also guys that are on like two different trajectories here, at least in their last few fights. So Fiziev is on a 3-fight losing streak, 2 pretty competitive, like close losses to Justin Gaethje, and then the one where he blew out his knee against Mateusz Gamrot. So don't really count that. For Bahamondes, he is on a 3-fight win streak, all of them round 1 finishes. When we're looking at these guys' skill sets, for Fiziev, he definitely has a Muay Thai base, great kicks, super powerful switch kicks. He throws like these big hooks in combination, works the body really well, both with his kicks and some of his hooks. He's going to push a pretty solid pace, but can kind of fade in fights. He's lost round 3 in each of his last 3 decision wins. So something to watch out for if he does kind of, push a super high pace. Is he going to be fading in those later rounds? And then for Ignacio Bahamondes here, it really seems like he's starting to break out in his last few fights. He is a massive frame for this weight class. He's only 27 years old, so should be getting, consistently better fight camp after fight camp. He's going to come in and he is going to push and be able to keep a high pace. This dude averages 7.1 significant strikes per minute. That is an insane number. He consistently switches stances, throws great kicks, uses his range. He's going to attack all 3 levels, head, body, and the legs. And he's very durable. He's never been KO'd. He's never been knocked down in the UFC. And I did make that point about the big size difference. Like, it is going to be jarring, I think, in there. Rafael Fiziev, 5'8", with a 71.5-inch reach. Ignacio Bahamondes, 6'3", with a 75.5-inch reach. I think that's going to play a huge factor in this matchup. Fiziev talked about how he considered moving down to 145. Man, I think that would have been the move. Lightweight is just filled with killers right now. He's clearly undersized for the division. Like, the fact that he could come in and cruise to making weight in that Justin Gaethje fight, when I think he took it on like 1 to 2 weeks notice, that tells me that he is too small for the division. And 145 is wide open. Like, with Holloway moving up, Ilya moving up, I think he could pick up a couple of wins and be fighting for the title. So I don't really like that he stuck around here at 155 and is now taking another very, very tough fight. And so I just think Fiziev's going to be too small. I'm not counting him out. I do think he can win this fight. I think he's a little bit more polished as a striker. He's faced the tougher competition. But Bahamondes is so dangerous. He has such strong cardio. He has all these dangerous weapons that Fiziev's going to have to contend with for potentially 15 minutes. Fiziev has been super durable. He can take a shot. We've seen this. I am going to go with Bahamondes here. I think Bahamondes wins by decision, but this is certainly going to be a fight that's in contention for fight of the night and potentially fight of the year if it really hits. And then we've arrived at the main event, Jamahal Hill taking on Khalil Rountree. I did a more in-depth breakdown already posted on my channel if you guys want to check that out, but we'll still go over like the general points I kind of talked about. Both these dudes coming off of some knockout losses. For Jamahal Hill, back-to-back KO losses to Alex Pereira and then Yuri Prochazka. For Khalil Rountree, his most recent loss was to Alex Pereira in that title fight. In the full breakdown, I kind of talked about a big point being like the size and just kind of physical advantages of Jamahal Hill compared to, I think, like the technical advantages of Khalil Rountree, where Jamahal Hill is going to look like the physically bigger guy. Khalil Rountree, obviously jacked, built, but he is undersized for this weight class. You could see it in the Alex Pereira fight. They did not look like they belonged, in the cage together, really, just in terms of like their physical size. Jamahal Hill looked a lot closer to Alex Pereira than we did see for Khalil Rountree. So I do think Jamahal Hill is going to be bigger. He's going to be the rangier guy, longer reach, taller. And so he's not going to have to close the distance in the way that Khalil Rountree can. And then I also think naturally Jamahal Hill just has more power. Like Khalil Rountree also hits hard, but he's so technical. He does everything the right way. Jamahal Hill really doesn't, and he's still able to just land these massive shots pretty much with any weapon. Like he switches stances. he can do whatever he wants, like throw whatever he wants, and it's going to be super powerful. I think on the other side here with the technical advantage, Khalil Rountree is just so sharp. He doesn't really overextend. A guy like Jamahal Hill just doesn't have great footwork, is kind of falling over his feet. He's overextending on shots, leaving his chin out. We saw that a bunch of times in the Yuri Prochazka fight. And so Khalil Rountree, I think, is more defensively responsible, but he's also going to have to do a lot more to close the distance. Like if you watch the Alex Pereira fight, Khalil Rountree is consistently exploding into range and just like coming up short on his punches. And that's against Alex, who like is not all that great moving back. Like when you see him get caught, it's when guys kind of extend combinations and he's like just not, getting back far enough and he's getting clipped. And he was like, Rountree was still struggling to land. So I think there's concerns on both sides. For Hill, I just think it's his overall ability. Like he overextends on shots. He leaves his chin out. For Khalil Rountree, I just think he's kind of at a physical disadvantage in this matchup. But I'm going to end up siding here with Khalil Rountree. I talked about this in the full breakdown, but I think it'll be interesting to see how Jamahal Hill fights from like a stance perspective, where Khalil Rountree is going to come in, he's going to fight from southpaw. Like we know that's the case. For Jamahal Hill, he likes to mix things up. Khalil Rountree has a really solid 2-3 combination where he'll kind of pull counter with a straight and then follow up with the right hook behind it. He'll also throw that in the inverse, where he'll throw the right hook and then follow it up with the straight. And Hill just leaves himself open for that combination. We saw it against Yuri Prochazka, southpaw versus southpaw. Hill overextended with a lead hook. Yuri landed that combination. And then he does it the other way, where he'll overextend with his right straight if he's fighting from orthodox, and he'll also run into that. So I'm just going to pick the guy that I think is the better MMA fighter, and that is Khalil Rountree. Now, it's light heavyweight. Both dudes hit hard. Both are live for a finish here, but I am going to side with Khalil Rountree, and I think he gets it done by a round 2 knockout. But that is going to wrap it up for my full card predictions. Let me hear your picks down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.